Hi, everybody. Hi. Oopsie daisy. So, okay. I had an issue come up. It needed to be rectified. I didn't know how long it was going to take, so I just logged off. But now I'm back. I don't know how much longer I'll be tonight, but that's okay. If I have to go, I have to go. If I don't, I don't. But we'll get to whatever we need to get to today. I don't even remember what the last thing it was that I was talking to you guys about, but this will be interesting for the YouTube crowd who's like, there's a missing part to this. Yes, there was YouTube. R.I.P.
Charlie Gurky. I spot the Berkey.
Did I miss this 610 stream? Yes. I was just explaining it.
Dorfidoodle is the winner. Did I miss
Oh
the
my God.
6:10 p.m. stream?
Okay. No one was in here earlier. All y'all are in here today. Or now. Hi, Blue. Hi, congratulations, Dorfy, on getting first. Okay. So, I had a family issue come up. I didn't know how long it was going to take, so I logged off because I was like, fuck it. I'm not going to sit with stream on BRB if I'm just going to be gone. I tired. I'm sorry. I sunburnt. Yeah. Get you a baddie with skin cancer. But so I logged off and situation is being handled. My presence wasn't required. You pale ghost. Shenandoah River. Life is older than the trees, younger than the mountains. Wait, swaying or blowing? Anyway, congratulations on your 7 months. I'm normally not this pale. I just haven't been in the sun since like July. And also I was like in direct sunlight all day for 2 days in a row. Country roads.
Dorfidoodle just subscribed with Prime.
Since like October.
Christ, there's a boomer around here.
When was the last time I posted pictures of me in my bathing suit? Was that October? I thought that was closer to like August. I felt like it was still warm outside. But yeah, off. I think it was October. It was still early warm fall. It's true. It was. I don't know. I don't remember. We'll have to pretend like we remember this year. I usually don't take off. I don't usually switch to pants until it drops below 40. And then it's pants all the time. And then after that, we've talked about it on the Discord today. I don't like wearing pants. I hate pants. Give me them shorts. Give me cargo shorts or give me death. Give Okay, so yeah, I'm back. It's still kind of the same topic and planning a bunch of shit. Jeans are prison, they really are. Sometimes even like leggings feel like a prison to me. Like the yoga pants, sometimes they're just too much. All right, did you guys hear? Probably heard because I sent it in the Discord. It's the wrong thing. Sent it in the Discord. I don't know if anybody read it, but I was going to read it on stream. Basically, Pete Kegsbreath, Petey McKegsbreath, got caught spending a bunch of money in a really short amount of time. That one at all. That one was darker. Okay. Where'd I put it? Not in the Weather Channel. Politics. Okay. God, what a great picture. Pete Kegsbreath blew billions on fruit. What is a fruit basket stand? Pears and crap. Okay. What is a fruit basket stand? Are we talking like fruit? The only fruit basket I know, Tokyo Pop. Basket. Oh my god. Hold on, you guys are, you can't even see it. Oh my god. Look at this. How much money did he spend on these fucking things? Nothing else but watermelon. He probably set up his own little store. Dear God, your mini stream didn't break my stream? Wait. Oh dear God, your mini stream didn't break my streak because it's days, not streams. I think that's how it works because it's like a 5-day stream streak. At least I don't know. But congratulations on your streaking. I appreciate the way you're streaking. Department of Defense blew $93 billion. Went on a $93 billion spending spree in 2025. So this is from January of 2025 to September of 2025. Ooh, thanks to donating to the movie night. I don't know what we're watching yet, but you'll be hosting it again. I saw you checking out my cake while I was streaking. Girl, you know I love serving up a slice of that flour. Give me that dough. Oh, man. All right, where was I? Pentagon spent more money in September, the end of 2025 fiscal year, than it had in any other year since 2008. 2008 was the year Obama was elected, and like the Iraq war was starting to like maybe wind down a little bit. Like Bush's term was coming to an end. A good chunk of the budget wasn't used for anything that could be considered a pertinent military expense. The Defense Department burned through $93 billion that month alone. Signing checks left and right in order to dry up its congressionally allocated budget, according to a recent analysis by the government watchdog Open Books. I saw you. Oh, I already read that. My back is tingling. Is that normal? The pressure to spend. If the federal agencies don't use the entirety of their budgets by the end of the fiscal year, they lose access to that cash forever, potentially putting themselves in a situation where they have to request a reduced budget for the following year. Oh, God forbid. But the Pentagon's long list of luxuries is hardly defensible. Some of the frivolous September purchases made under Secretary Pete Kegsbreath stewardship include $98,000 in Steinway and Sons. Wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. Include a $98,329 Steinway and Sons grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff's home. $5.3 million for Apple devices such as a new iPad and an astronomical amount of shellfish. Including $2 million in Alaskan king crab and $6.9 million worth of lobster tail. Lobster tail is apparently a favorite of Kegsbreath's Pentagon. This is wild. Oh, it gets better. Department spent more than $7.4 million total on luxury items in March, May, June, and October. Oh, on luxury items. Hold on, I want to pop the music. Sorry, background noises for me, not for you. All right, where was I? In other pricey food purchases, the government decided to drop $15.1 million for ribeye steak. Again, just in September. $124,000 in ice cream machines. They bought whole ass ice cream machines. How much is an ice cream machine? Now I have questions. Like, are we talking like personal? Are we talking like are we talking like this kind? Or are we talking like this kind? No, I bet he means like an actual like swirly, like a this. Yay, Twitch is blocking my messages. It's your VPN. I thought it was your VPN. I think it was something more like this, like industrial kitchen size. Like he was... Can't even say hello anymore, you cat. This is so funny. Do you think they were trying to recreate episodes of like Iron Chef by like buying like a bunch of expensive food and an ice cream machine? Because we all know every battle of Iron Chef has an ice cream machine being used. I don't think there was like a single one where it didn't get used. Yeah, it's my VP and my last 100 goodbyes. So machines, plural. Yeah, machines. Yeah, well, everybody has their own station. So everybody has to have their own ice cream machine maker. Does that make sense? Like, if you're trying to make your entire staff do Iron Chef, bro needed a machine in every office. I mean, I would too. Listen, I'm not saying I wouldn't do these things. I just think it's wild that this is like something that it has been done. Like this is something a 5-year-old dreams of. I got more points. Why don't they give me 94 billion to me? That why couldn't they give it back to the American taxpayer by putting it towards health insurance? Oh, I'm so stiff. All right. Ice cream machines and 139,000 on 272 orders of donuts. That's how you spell donuts? I thought it was always like D-O-N-U-T because of like Dunkin'. Well, now I feel stupid. Weeks later, millions of Americans will lose their SNAP benefits amid the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Oh, the weeks after they ordered all of this stuff. Donut is technically not correct, but everyone doesn't care. They do not care. Weeks later, millions of Americans would lose their SNAP benefits amid the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. More still stand to lose eligibility to food assistance programs thanks to the Republican crusade that added stricter work requirements to programs, piling on paperwork and documentation mandates. One of the largest bulk expenditures was just for furniture, which the Pentagon decided to shell out $225 million. That included $12,000 for fruit basket stands, which we'd looked up. They're like these bad boys. But like they're expensive ones. Why do they need so many fruit basket stands? How much fruit are they ordering? Or did like they need it for all the cafeterias? Okay, see you later. Okay, bye. We'll see you in like an hour, maybe. Grab by the Ghoulies. Where was I? What was I doing? What was I doing? Oh wait. I got distracted by fruits basket. And checks totaling more than $60,000 for Herman Miller recliners. All in all, the agency spent more on furniture in 2025 than it had in over a decade. The last 5 days of September alone, the department blew through $50.1 billion on just grants and contracts. For context, only 9 other countries spend that much on their entirety of their defense budget per year. That is also more than the total military budget of Canada and Mexico. Oh my god. He's just spending money on junk. We spend the most on our military, and the military's just buying fruit baskets and recliners. The fuck is this shit? Republicans are the worst? What the hell is this shit? What kind of fucking 5-year-old fantasy is it? It's like, oh, when I run the government, I'm gonna take all the money that the government gave me to buy war contracts and weapons with so we can bomb school children. I'm gonna use it to put an ice cream machine in every office. Like, that's what we're getting right now. The federal government and the Dems don't do this. Yeah, wait. Is it any wonder that the GOP fuck this up every time and the Dems don't do this? I feel like a lot of Democratic like administrations and time periods are also about like building, like clawing back everything we lost, or as much as they can of the things that we lost, to clean up and to put the, you know, the economy on a good trajectory, only to, you know, put another Republican in and then it all gets wiped away. I wish the Dems had more backbone. They're allergic to it. The federal government has had $1.8 trillion deficit. Federal government had a $1.8 trillion deficit in 2025. Ultimately, the military's massive expenditures offered up more evidence that the Trump administration has not put any meaningful effort into cracking down on needless government spending, a pledge that Donald Trump has wielded on the campaign trail since 2015. Under Secretary Kegsbreath, the Pentagon has consistently said its mission is to refocus on warfighting and lethality. Open the book CEO John Hart said, last year we highlighted the problem of wasteful use it or lose it year-end spending. We noticed that this reform is fully within the Secretary's control, and it is a historic opportunity to make good on that promise. Yeah, so he bought like a bunch of crap. I can't. I'm so glad I stumbled on that today. Like, perfect. But you know, now it's time for the news.
Welcome to
Give it to me, news, daddy.
You and AI work together to build a unique brand.
Oh, hold on. Sometimes he has to
US
earn
and
those.
Israel just launched their most intense strikes on Iran since the war began. You also have people in Tehran saying that if this keeps up another 10 days, nothing's going to be left of the city. And the president's response to all this has been telling CBS that the war is very complete, pretty much, though the same day his Department of Defense posted that we have only just begun to fight. So you have many wondering, well, which is it? Because while Trump, he keeps contradicting himself and his own officials, the bombs are getting bigger, the death toll is climbing, and there are reports that Israel is trying to inflict maximum damage before Trump randomly decides to pull the plug. And with that, you had Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying this at a press briefing this morning.
Today will be yet again our most intense day of strikes inside Iran. The most fighters, the most bombers, the most strikes. Intelligence more refined and better than ever.
And that tracks with what people are saying on the ground. Residents in Tehran telling reporters that the recent bombardment has been the most intense of the entire war. One person telling the New York Times it seems like they're striking everywhere, homes, schools, mosques, hospitals, saying if they keep hitting Tehran like this for another 10 days, nothing will remain of the city. And as far as why it's ramping up now, there's been no official reason given, but Iran's ability to defend itself and retaliate, it's been degrading. Though
Thousands of years of history wiped off the face of the fucking planet. And for what?
there's also been
You know what? Not even that. I'm sorry. Human lives currently being lived are also being destroyed. And for what?
more cynical explanation out there, right? A source familiar with Israel's plans told Reuters that the military has been trying to inflict as much damage as possible before their window closes. Because Trump might taco again and just, put out the mission accomplished banner. And that assumption, it seems kind of justified because how and when this war ends appears to have nothing to do with a defined military objective and everything to do with the whims of just one person. Hegseth went from 3 to 8 weeks to now refusing to give a timeline at all, instead offering an answer designed to let Trump declare victory whenever he feels like it.
From the beginning, from this podium, we haven't stated how long it will take. Our will is endless. Ultimately, the president gets to determine the end state of those objectives, right? But what he's said continually, and I want the American people to understand, is this is not endless. It's not protracted. We're not allowing mission.
Is that a seagull? Why does his chest look like it has a seagull? Like a laughing gull? Or it just like the way it's like it looks like a seagull.
Creep. The president has set a very specific mission to accomplish.
Or like
our job is to unrelentingly deliver.
I don't know,
that.
like
Now, he
like a
gets to control the
shorebird.
throttle. He's the one deciding. He's the one elected on behalf of the American people when we're achieving those particular objectives. And so it's not for me to posit
So
whether it's the
distracting.
beginning, the middle, or the end. That's his, and he'll continue to communicate that.
And Trump has been all over the place. And again, in a CBS interview yesterday, he said, I think the war is very complete pretty much. And that same day, the Defense Department posted, we have only just begun to fight, which also notably sounded a lot like Hegseth just a few days earlier, where he told 60 Minutes, this is only just the beginning. You then also had Trump at an event with House Republicans in Florida calling it a short-term excursion, while then also saying that the war would continue until Iran is totally and decisively defeated.
We've already won in many ways, but we haven't won enough. We go forward more determined than ever to achieve ultimate victory that will end this long-running danger once and for all.
And actually, at a press conference, you had a reporter finally asking the obvious question.
Mr. President, you've said the war is, quote, very complete, but your defense secretary says this is just the beginning. So which is it, and how long should Americans be prepared
Well, I think
for
you could
this war
say
to
it
last
both.
for?
It's the beginning. It's the beginning of building a new country, but they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft equipment. It's all been blown up. They have no radar. They have no telecommunications, and they have no leadership. It's all gone. So, you could look at that statement. We could call it a tremendous success right now as we leave here. I could call it, or we could go further. And we're going to go further.
So just so we're on the same page, the President of the United States is simultaneously saying that the war is basically over and that it's going to continue until total victory. And you have his officials toggling between just the beginning and the President decides when it's done. Nobody seems to know what the plan is because it appears that there isn't one. There is just Trump deciding in real time. Now also with that, Trump's suggestion that the war might be winding down, it did help oil prices come down from their peak because they had actually just hit their highest point since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And there, if you look, he has been somewhat consistent in at least trying to calm the markets down based off of the crazy shit that he's been doing. And actually, at the Florida event, he suggested relaxing certain oil-related sanctions and even saying that some might not be reinstated
I think didn't he announce that he was taking sanctions off of Russia?
after the war. And while he didn't name specific countries, Russia is the obvious candidate there,
Oh.
especially since this reportedly came after a call with Putin about both Iran and Ukraine. And in fact, the US already issued a temporary 30-day waiver last week to let India buy Russian oil stranded at sea. Also, regarding the Strait of Hormuz, you had Trump opening the door to continued military action to keep it open.
We will hit them so hard that it will not be possible for them or anybody else helping them to ever recover that section of the world.
You then also had him doubling down on social media, writing that Iran would be hit 20 times harder than it has been so far, and adding, we will take out easily destroyable targets that will make it virtually impossible for Iran to ever be built back as a nation again. Death, fire, and fury will rain upon them, but I hope and pray that it does not happen. But in the face of all of this, Iranian officials do not appear to be backing down. Where a top security official appeared to threaten Trump directly, writing, even those bigger than you couldn't eliminate Iran, be careful not to get eliminated yourself. And Iran's Speaker of Parliament writing that the country is definitely not looking for a ceasefire and adding, we believe that the aggressor should be punched in the mouth so that he learns a lesson. And then with all this, you had their foreign ministers saying they're unlikely to return to negotiations because they've had a very bitter experience of talking with Americans after the administration has broken off talks to launch attacks. All while you have their Revolutionary Guard Corps claiming that it would determine the end of the war themselves and adding that they would not allow 1 liter of oil to reach the US or its allies while attacks continue. And here, while it might not seem like Iran's in a position to be making threats, you have experts noting that it's not exactly that simple. Or with many arguing that Iran doesn't need to win militarily, it just needs to outlast the United States, or at least hang on long enough that the war becomes too politically and economically costly to continue. And with that, you've had sources described as Iranian insiders telling Reuters that the regime has long known that this day would come, and they prepared a layered strategy coordinated against the Guard's sprawling military networks and proxy forces. So you're seeing people like a professor of international relations at the London School of Economics telling Reuters, for them, they're waging an existential fight, saying this is an all-out war. They believe their very survival is at stake. They're willing to bring the temple down on everyone's heads. And you had a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute adding, they're like a bleeding animal, wounded, but therefore more dangerous than ever. But as far as how long Iran can
we not
actually
compare
sustain,
people to
it depends
animals?
largely on its missile stockpile. And you have American officials saying that a large share has been destroyed now. In fact, Trump claimed yesterday that most of Iran's missiles have been used or destroyed. But also, some reports indicate that Iran may still have more than half of its pre-war arsenal. And if that ends up being true, that's weeks more of continued attacks, which could be a serious problem for Trump, depending on what happens with the Strait of Hormuz and the broader economic fallout. Which actually, on the note of broader moves, you've got France now sending 10 warships to the Middle East, some potentially to escort commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz, and what Macron described as an unprecedented mobilization. And that's really just one example of how this is spreading to other countries. Where the US and Israel have hit Iran, killing more than 1,200. Israel's also attacked Lebanon, killing more than 500. And Iran has struck at least 10 countries since the war began, killing several several dozen people, including 7 U.S. service members, and that's also as the Pentagon revealed today that roughly 140 troops have been wounded, with 8 suffering from life-threatening injuries. And according to Axios' numbers, counting anyone shooting, shielding, or quietly supplying, the total number of countries directly involved in this conflict is now 20, though it's possibly more. But this is all happening as China may be preparing to supply Iran with financial.
Well, and I also heard that like Iran has told like all countries, and I think in the Middle East and Europe, that like, hey, you kick out the United States embassy, we won't attack it anymore. Deal?
Financial assistance, spare parts, and missile components, according to U.S. intelligence. And Russia has reportedly already been sharing satellite imagery of American warships and aircraft with Iran, helping it target U.S. forces across the region. And then on the other side,
I mean, I don't know why that's surprising to anybody. They're all in BRICS together. Iran, I believe, is the I in BRICS. Like, I don't.
which has spent 4 years defending against the same Iranian-made drones now being used against Gulf countries, they've sent specialists and equipment to help those nations out. And actually, the war between Russia and Ukraine is being affected here as well. These talks that were planned for Abu Dhabi, they've been postponed indefinitely. Trump's sanctions waiver could end up also boosting Russia's war economy. And the Pentagon reportedly burned through $5.6 billion in munitions in just the first 2 days of the assault on Iran. We're eating into stockpiles that were built up over years to deter China and the Pacific. So that ends up raising a very real question of what happens if Beijing makes a move on Taiwan. And one of the interesting ways this was described was a way that Axios put it, saying this isn't World War III, but it may be the closest we've come in decades, drawing in more countries, more great powers, and more overlapping conflicts than any.
Okay, but like, at this point, so what the fuck if China goes after Taiwan? Should we be more worried that the United States is going after Venezuela and Cuba and Iran? Like, shouldn't that be like the bigger concern? Instead of like, oh, China might one day go to Taiwan? Like, come on, dude.
Crisis since the Cold War.
See, this is why I wait to give him the like, because sometimes I don't always agree with his points, and I don't always like and enjoy the video.
And also, while the scope of this war expands, it's changing how wars are fought, because we're seeing artificial intelligence playing a direct role in this one. According to the Washington Post, a system built by Palantir analyzed classified data from satellites, surveillance, and other intelligence to provide real-time targeting and prioritization of military operations in Iran. And as planning was underway, the system reportedly suggested hundreds of targets, issued precise location coordinates, and ranked them by importance. With one expert telling the Post that the ability to develop targeting packages at machine speed rather than human speed is the key paradigm shift in combat thanks to AI. But then he also said that the downside is that AI gets it wrong, and adding, we need humans to check the output of generative AI when the stakes are life and death. And that comment, it lands very, very hard when you think about the strike on a girls' school that killed 175 people, most of them children. Or with mounting evidence suggesting that the US was responsible, and the military's own investigators are reportedly leaning toward that conclusion as well. And while right now there's no publicly available evidence that AI was involved in that specific strike, it is exactly the kind of mistake that people are worried about when algorithms make targeting decisions at a speed that humans can't keep up with. And then also, one of the things that stands out here is that the AI system that the military is using, it may have been built by Palantir, but embedded, reportedly, it's Claude, the AI tool developed by Anthropic. But even though the Pentagon is reportedly using Claude to pick targets in Iran, it also just banned every other federal agency and every company with a defense contract from using Anthropic's products. And the reason is that Anthropic refused to remove 2 safety restrictions: no domestic mass surveillance and no weapons that make kill decisions without humans. But for the Pentagon, they said no. They've also now punished the company, and so Anthropic is suing. And the case, it has implications for every AI company, every defense contractor, and every corporation that tries to push back against this administration. And as far as how we got here, back in January, you had Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth issuing a memo instructing all AI companies with Pentagon contracts to remove restrictions on their technology and give the military a blank check to use their products however it sees fit. And their argument was that, hey, the military follows the law and companies shouldn't be able to impose additional limits. And while most AI companies agreed to renegotiate, Anthropic, which had a $200 million pilot contract with the Pentagon, they didn't. Instead, they insisted that the DoD agree to 2 conditions. Again, no domestic mass surveillance and no autonomous weapons that may kill decisions without a human in the loop. 2 things I think most people would think are fairly reasonable asks. But the Pentagon was not one of those with that opinion. Instead, you had Hegseth threatening that if Anthropic did not fall in line, he'd designate the company a supply chain risk. Right? And that essentially puts it on a government blacklist. When a company gets that label, it's cut off from future contracts, and the government's typically required to stop using its products. But Anthropic, they held their ground and they missed the compliance deadline, which is why you then had Trump posting on Truth Social that he was directing every federal agency in the United States government to immediately cease,
And that's including like the people, like the missiles that are being fired,
all use of Anthropic's technology. But then also, 2 sentences later, he appeared to contradict contradict himself by adding that there would be a 6-month phase out for agencies like the Department of Defense that are currently using Anthropic's products. And then shortly after, you had Hegseth confirming the supply chain risk designation, writing that no contractor, supplier, or partner that does business with the United States military may conduct any commercial activity with Anthropic. And with that, he said that they would be transitioning to a more patriotic service. And a big thing to understand is that
Oh, so now he believes in transitioning. Way to go, Pete Kegsbreath.
the supply chain risk label, that's a huge deal. I mean, it's completely unprecedented here. It is a designation that's only ever been applied to foreign adversaries like Chinese and Russian firms suspected of aiding foreign intelligence. Anthropic says that it's literally the first time in history that it's been publicly applied to an American company. The ripple effects here, they're massive. Tons of major companies with military contracts use Anthropic's products. We're talking Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Lockheed Martin. And Hegseth's demand that all of those companies stop using Anthropic, it would hit some of the biggest corporate interests in the world. And so with all this, you've had Anthropic filing 2 lawsuits, one in California and one in DC. And they're asking the federal courts to strike down the designation. Their first argument being that the Trump administration exceeded the legal scope of the statute that gives it the power to designate supply chain risks. With Anthropic saying that the law is narrow and intended for foreign adversaries who pose a national security risk. And arguing that the administration hasn't explained how an American AI company that the Pentagon is still actively using in combat fits that description. With that, they're also arguing that the law doesn't give Trump the power to ban all federal agencies from using Anthropic, and it doesn't give Hegseth the authority to ban private companies from using its products for non-defense purposes. And they say Hegseth failed to follow the required government procedures, including notifying Congress, consulting relevant authorities, and ensuring the designation was the least restrictive option available. And then their second argument is that the whole thing violates the First Amendment. And Anthropic says that the administration is misusing a law designed for foreign supply chain threats to punish an American company for exercising protected speech, specifically its public position on AI safety guardrails. And it's this one that you have legal experts saying is very, very strong, arguing this is clearly not what the supply chain risk law was intended for, especially given that
Sorry, I hear.
the Pentagon has repeatedly sought to obtain Anthropic services for national defense. Also, others have pointed out that Hegseth almost certainly can't ban companies from using Claude for non-defense purposes. In fact, major players like Microsoft and Google have publicly said that they're going to continue using Anthropic's products outside of their defense contracts. And one of the things that tells you how serious this is that you've also had a few dozen employees from OpenAI and Google, right, Anthropic's main competitors, filing a legal brief supporting the lawsuit. And they argued that if the Pentagon wins, they would undoubtedly have consequences for the United States' industrial and scientific competitiveness in the field of artificial intelligence and beyond. And dadding, by silencing one lab, the government reduces the industry's potential to innovate solutions. And then also you had a group representing some of the world's biggest tech companies sending a letter to Hegseth accusing him of misusing a law that exists for genuine emergencies. And so you're seeing like Anthropic's rivals going to bat for it in court. But you know, it's very notable because
because then he can do the same thing to them when they don't do what they like, when they don't agree on something.
Industry at large has kissed the ring in a lot of areas under this administration. The fact that they're digging in here publicly, legally, on the record, it tells you how seriously they take the right to set their own guardrails on AI. And then there's more we got to dive into in just a minute, but first let me thank a sponsor and say, you know, if your week's moving so fast, you're basically eating whatever's closest, which let's face it, for me, it's usually something like Doritos, not the best choice. This is for you. Because today's sponsor, Factor, isn't a meal kit. It's food that's already done.
Isn't
more
Factor
importantly,
owned by
it's
HelloFresh?
good. Factor delivers fully prepared, dietitian approved,
they, like,
chef-made meals that you can just
anti-union?
eat and pretend you planned. No chopping, no pans, no what's the next meal spiral. When you have no time, it's the opposite of cooking. And my go-to lately has been their high protein meals when I want to stay on track without becoming a meal prep person. And the ingredients are great. Lean proteins, colorful
was so
veggies,
gray.
whole food ingredients, healthy fats. And they cut the junk, no refined sugars, no
grayer
artificial
than my
sweeteners, and no
hair.
refined seed
Ugh.
oils. And there's tons of variety, 100 rotating weekly options, plus calorie smart, Mediterranean, and really whatever will support your goals. Meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and you're eating in about 2 minutes. That's not cooking. It's a pit stop that's not eating up your day. No pun intended. So just scan that QR code or go to factormeals.com/DeFranco50 off and use code DeFranco50 off to get 50% off and a free breakfast for a year. Then diving right back into the news, the FBI just subpoenaed the 2020 election audit records from Maricopa County, Arizona, which is the largest county and the most important swing state in the country. Right? And this is that audit that was funded by MAGA organizations. The claims that it produced were debunked. And when the recount was actually done, they found more votes for Biden. And that was 5 years ago, but here we are again, with a federal grand jury issuing the subpoena to the Arizona Senate for for records related to its 2020 audit, and you had Arizona Senate President Warren Peterson confirming yesterday that they received it and complied. And of course, important context here is that Maricopa County was pivotal in 2020. It helped swing Arizona for Biden, making it the first time that a Democrat won the state since Bill Clinton in 1996. And Trump, ever since, he's been obsessed with it. He's definitely not alone. After the election, the Arizona Senate oversaw that audit, largely funded by groups that were openly MAGA, and they peddled conspiracy theories. More than $5.7 million came from organizations like America's Future, chaired by former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, and a nonprofit run by Sidney Powell, Trump's former lawyer who pled guilty in connection with her efforts to overturn his loss in Georgia. And the auditors submitted claims about deleted files, faulty internet connections, and questionable signature verifications, though none of it was substantiated, and Maricopa County pushed back hard.
This board is done explaining anything to these people who are playing investigator with our constituents' ballots and equipment paid for with real people's tax dollars.
The county was literally fact-checking the audit's claims in real time on social media, or making clear that most of the accusations were coming from either people who were just lying, or it was like an inexperienced, seemingly clumsy operation. And again, one of the wild things is that when the audit was finally completed, they found additional votes for Biden. Now, with all this, Arizona state law requires paper ballots to be destroyed 2 years after an election, so the originals are gone. But according to former Secretary of State Ken Bennett, the audit team made digital copies of the 2020 ballots. Now, whether those copies were included in what was turned over, that hasn't been confirmed. But also, I think we need to talk about is this is not happening in isolation. Less than 2 months ago, the FBI seized an election office in Atlanta, also in connection to the 2020 election. Or because Georgia, led in part by Stacey Abrams' organizing, went blue in 2020 for the first time since 1992, and just like Arizona, it was immediately under MAGA fire for allegedly rigging the election.
If we could just go over some of the numbers, I think it's pretty clear that we won. We won very substantially, Georgia. It never made sense. Much of that had to do with Fulton County.
So Arizona and Georgia, the two states that flipped in 2020, both are now under federal investigation for elections that have already been audited, litigated, and found to be legitimate. And as far as Trump with all this, he was predictably thrilled. We're posting on Truth Social that the subpoena was great, which is an odd reaction from someone who still hasn't found a single piece of evidence of rigging after 5 years of looking. Right, and then, connected to all this, you have Arizona Secretary of State Adrian Fontes raising the alarm, calling this part of a broader effort to undermine the electoral process. Right, and he's also spoken out against Trump's idea about nationalizing elections.
There's nothing more un-American. That's just not how this country was built. That's not what the Constitution says.
You had Fontes releasing a statement saying that these efforts are founded on conspiracy theories and raise serious concerns, and warning that prolonged disputes and conflicting claims risk creating unnecessary chaos and undermining public confidence in our election system. With him calling the subpoena a move by the DOJ to undermine the legal process. So you also had Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays being more blunt, calling it the weaponization of federal law enforcement in service of crackpots and lies. And all of this, it's connected because relitigating 2020, it's not just about the past, but it's about building the justification to change the rules for the future. We've watched this playbook develop over years now. When organizers like Stacey Abrams were building movements against voter suppression and actually increasing turnout, some of Trump's biggest supporters were pushing back against the idea of more people voting.
A power grab that's smelling more and more like exactly what it is.
And they were spewing that rhetoric while there were also real verifiable reports of voter suppression. Among other things like long wait times and closed polling locations, creating the exact kind of power imbalances that McConnell was projecting onto the other side.
We know voter suppression is real, but we never talk about it. We take it for granted.
And now you've got Trump trying to push to end mail-in voting entirely.
We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. It's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected.
Or you got Trump pushing the SAVE Act, which he already said is meant to guarantee the midterms fall in Republicans' favor.
The SAVE Act would, in effect, take away your right to vote.
He's also pushed states to redraw congressional maps to lean further right. He's battered election offices and voters with political bullying. And just today, you had the DNC suing the Trump administration to get a straight answer on whether armed federal agents or military personnel are going to be at the polls in the midterms. And so with all of this, one of the reasons that it's important that we talk about it is it's important to remember and project out there that this is not actually about election integrity. Right? If it were, they would have found something by now. This is about Trump and his people using the machinery of the federal government to cast doubt on any election result that doesn't go his way, and to make the process of voting harder for the people who are most likely to vote against him. And this is ultimately part of the Trump playbook we've seen over and over again, right? The conspiracy theories around voter fraud have been repeated so many times from him and his people, and with so much energy that a lot of people they treat it like it's fact. But it is not. It never has been. You know, looking at the situation, maybe Stacey Abrams said it best.
We've been practicing at democracy for a really long time. America gets it right most of the time, but when we stumble, it is really bad.
And so, we'll see where all this lands with the FBI, but also I believe that the subpoena is not fully the point. That the doubt that it creates is, the doubt is the weapon. And then actually on the note of doubt and uncertainty, let's talk about what's going on with the Supreme Court. Because 2 Supreme Court justices just went at it in public over whether the court's basically letting the Trump administration skip the line. With Justice Kavanaugh saying that they don't have a choice, Justice Jackson saying that they're the ones who created the problem, and the numbers, they actually appear to back her up. Right? The Trump administration has won 80% of the emergency cases that it's brought to court, which is a crazy number. But also first, let's get into some background, because since coming back into office, the Trump administration has flooded the Supreme Court with emergency applications. These quick requests to greenlight policies while lower courts are still debating whether they're even legal. So we're talking immigration, federal funding, banning trans athletes, firing independent agency leaders, things like that. And with that, you've had a whole chunk of the Trump agenda just fast-tracked. And how it works is, on the court's normal docket, justices choose which cases to take, they receive extensive written briefs, hear oral arguments, deliberate for months, and then they publish an opinion laying out how each justice voted and why. But on the emergency docket, what people call the shadow docket, you have cases typically decided without oral argument, without full briefing, sometimes in a matter of days. No vote count, no reasoning published, just a decision. And the Supreme Court's conservative supermajority, they've allowed many of Trump's policies to just take effect through this process, even as lower courts are still actively questioning their legality. And again, the Trump administration has won 80% of its shadow docket cases. That is leaps and bounds beyond what the Biden administration ever achieved. And understandably, it's drawn straight up contempt from Democrats who are accusing the conservative majority of loading the scale in Trump's favor. And all of that, it brought us to yesterday, where you had Justice Brett Kavanaugh and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson making a rare public appearance together at an annual lecture honoring former federal judge Thomas Flannery. Right? And they gave us a back and forth exactly on this issue, or as heated, I guess, as Supreme Court justices can get, with Kavanaugh making the case that the uptick in emergency applications isn't a Trump exclusive thing. Kavanaugh arguing that the gridlock in Congress has led to more executive orders from presidents across the board, which leads to more court challenges, saying there's a more aggressive executive branch over the years because it's difficult to get legislation through Congress. And with this, he pointed specifically to the Biden administration's emergency request to maintain access to the abortion drug mifepristone while a lower court challenge played out. We're saying that is proof that this is not one-sided, but you had Jackson really not having that. Jackson said it's very different. Biden was asking the court to maintain the status quo, keep access to something that already existed. Whereas Trump, he's doing something fundamentally different, saying what is happening now is the administration is making new policy, but then insisting that the new policy take effect immediately before a challenge about its lawfulness is determined. But also Jackson didn't just blame Trump, she put it on the court itself, specifically the conservative justices like Kavanaugh.
Christ, there's a boomer around here.
And her argument is that by signaling a willingness to take these cases before they work through the lower courts, the conservative majority has just emboldened the administration to keep doing it. She called it a warped kind of proceeding, and the lack of written opinions and shadow docket decisions, it's a big part of what bothers her. Because when she writes a dissent on a normal case, she's speaking to the public, saying, when I am writing a dissent, I am speaking to the American people, probably more so than anybody. The hope is that at some point in the future, there will be enough people who are agreeing with
Man, I thought I hit the Jersey one. You still got time and points, maybe. I don't know.
the way I am viewing this particular issue. With then adding that this whole approach to the shadow docket, it's not serving the court and it's not serving our country well at this point. Well, Kavanaugh, to his credit, he didn't entirely disagree. Instead, he said that the speed at which they have to respond to these emergency cases is frustrating, saying none of us enjoys this, but then he also said he doesn't feel the court has a choice. Which, hey, this is just my opinion. That's just words. Right? His actions are that of someone being complicit, and, you know, he can kind of complain about it, but he's still doing what he's doing. You know, with all this, while obviously a big part of the question is, well, what is going to happen for the rest of Trump's term? I think having a longer vision on this, asking the question of what is the court system going to look like at the end of Trump's second term, that might be the bigger thing. Right? Because what happens if and when you get a Democratic president in there who looks at the Trump playbook, looks at how they've handled things and go, oh, okay, so that's what we're allowed to do. Because unfortunately, it feels like things have been used, abused, and broken to such a degree that if someone goes in there that's not a Republican and they try and do something that is like old school normal, they're not going to be able to accomplish anything, and the people that voted them in are going to resent them. And while I think that a lot of people, they crave some normalcy, the path back to normal probably involves a lot of
we are not going back to what we were. We have to rise up anew.
Normal things, at least based off of recent historic precedent. Though again, this is going to be a long-standing question, not even...
If there's something that Persephone has taught me, it's that everything will go to shit and then you will rise up anew, okay? We ain't going back. You can't go back.
Maybe the next 4 to 10 years, because there is a conservative supermajority there right now. And then there's more we've got to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me thank a sponsor and say, you know, paying $60 to $100 a month for wireless in 2026, it's equivalent to paying for dial-up on purpose. Right? Today's sponsor, Mint Mobile, was essentially built to save you money on your phone bill. They give you premium wireless without the premium price, and you can sign up online without dealing with the store chaos. And right now, they're offering y'all 50% off unlimited wireless plans, locking in Mint's lowest price ever, $15 a month on a 3, 6, or 12-month plan. That's $15 $15 a month for unlimited, which is less than what some of you are paying in random fees alone. And if you don't need unlimited, Mint has 5 gigabyte, 15 gigabyte, 20 gigabyte, basically a plan for
You
every
gonna hit
level of
me with
I
the
never
end of the
leave
show
Wi-Fi. And the
as soon
setup's
as
simple.
this
You buy in
Mint Mobile
3,
ad
6,
is
or 12
done?
month chunks, and the longer you buy, the more you save. Just activate from home with eSIM, keep your number, or grab a new one, and there's a money back guarantee if you're nervous. So stop letting your wireless bill break your bank. Get this new customer offer and pay just $15 a month for a 3, 6, or 12-month plan. That's 50% off an unlimited wireless plan at mintmobile.com/DeFranco. Again, that's mintmobile.com/DeFranco, or scan that QR code. Go pay less and maybe feel morally superior about it. Then, diving right back into the news, New Mexico's Department of Justice is searching Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch right now as part of a criminal probe into the property.
Yay.
The files accuse Epstein of abusing women and girls there, and
I mean,
there's
yay that they're searching it. Let me clarify.
even an allegation that he ordered the bodies of 2 girls to be buried nearby. But despite all that, the property was never fully investigated the way that Epstein's other homes were. That is, until now. But also, you have officials being upfront about what they're up against. Where you're the state's attorney general recently writing an op-ed laying it out, saying, I want to be honest about the challenges ahead. Epstein has been dead for years. Zorro Ranch has changed ownership. Physical evidence may no longer exist, and the statute of limitations is likely run on many potential offenses. These are real obstacles, and survivors deserve to hear them stated plainly. But then adding, we will follow the evidence wherever it leads and leave no credible question unexplored. With them also promising to release a public report of all the findings, and you had the DOJ asking the public to stay away from the area and ground any drones nearby to avoid interfering with the operation. Now, as far as the ownership change, the estate sold back in 2023, and this year we actually learned it's now in the hands of a Texas real estate mogul who's actually just won the Republican primary for Texas comptroller. And he's promised full cooperation, calling the search a welcome step toward truth and justice. But also, since the property changed hands years after Epstein's death, you have the question of, what evidence is actually going to still be there. You also have state lawmakers urging that no stone be left unturned, and they've even shared a tip line for anyone with information on crimes that Epstein and his associates committed in New Mexico. Now, also with this situation over the weekend, you had a major rally being held outside of the ranch to coincide with International Women's Day. And among those who showed up, you had the brothers of Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of the most vocal Epstein survivors until she died of a reported suicide last year. And they demanded that the DOJ release the full files, including the names of the men that Virginia alleged abused her in New Mexico. And there's this growing sense among survivors and advocates that these state-level investigations might actually be the real turning point in the Epstein case, especially because a lot of people have lost faith in how the federal government's handling it. I mean, many out there, they believe that the DOJ is running a cover-up. And actually, on that note, after enormous public pressure, the DOJ did end up releasing previously withheld documents containing allegations against Trump. In a series of FBI interviews from 2019, you had a woman claiming that she was sexually assaulted by Epstein and Trump when she was a teenager. She also claimed that Epstein blackmailed her mother for years after the alleged abuse, but also the documents don't say whether the FBI found the claims credible or what they did to verify them. And so, while understandably, a lot of the focus right now has been on Iran, and there are massive implications there. Between these allegations, the New Mexico search, and the constant stream of headlines that are still happening along with Iran at the same time, it still seems like there's a lot of energy to finding out more from this, and there are a lot of paths for lawmakers and investigators to go down in this case. And actually, with all this, you had Representative Ro Khanna writing last night, I will not relent until the files are released and we have investigations and prosecutions.
Look, here's why people shouldn't give up hope, because when people cover it, when journalists make a big deal of it, then suddenly Pam Bondi relents and then we get 10,000 more files, 40,000 more files. So we need to just be on this until we can get a judge to order the release of the rest of the files.
And that's really the core of it, right? The DOJ didn't release those Trump documents because they suddenly decided transparency was a priority. They released them because public pressure got too loud to ignore. Public outcry. It works. Media coverage. It works. It could be slow. It could be frustrating. It can feel like slamming your head against a wall. Then sometimes you shake something loose. Then sometimes you crack it. And all of a sudden you start seeing a little bit of a spotlight breaking through. And so one of the questions with everything, but especially this, is whether people keep their focus on it long enough for it to actually matter. Or does, the next news cycle just bury it? Right? Because every week that goes by without full transparency, it's another week that the people, not the survivors, but all the other people who were in those files get to live like nothing ever happened. I think people are just sick and tired of living in a world where there's no accountability. But that, my friends, you beautiful bastards, is the end of your Tuesday Philip DeFranco.
It straight up feels like no matter what around the world, that it doesn't matter how evil you are or how many crimes you commit, as long as you have money, you will never ever face justice. I just also, it was really kind of funny that International Women's Day happened on the same day daylight savings did. Right? Because make 75 cents on the dollar. Wait, they're scared about something happening at the Oscars because somebody threw a bomb at Zoran Mamdani's house? What? I don't understand the connection there. Zoran's not involved with the Oscars. Always go to the wrong news tab. The only thing that's stuck in my head. 25 hours a day. It lives rent free. Come on. YouTube was like, no more. We're not doing it anymore. Not working. We've had it. Loading so slow. I know Marjorie Taylor's seat replacement race.
Time. Let me introduce them to you. Democratic strategist Matt Bennett, Republican
Not what I
strategist
wanted.
Lauren
Boo.
Gillespie. Matt, I want to talk to you about.
I don't want the talking heads. I'm the only talking head around here. Are they? I need to know if there's anybody even like
the replacement for Miss Green. I would prefer them to be honest and trustworthy.
I'm looking for someone who's willing to compromise and work with each other. That would be so nice to see if both Republican and Democrats could get their acts together and quit fussing among themselves and work together.
Getting somebody in there that will take care of the regular people. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Democrat supporter. I just think it's ridiculous that all this stuff's going on, and we need to come together.
No matter who it is, there's certain stuff you don't agree with Trump on. There's certain stuff you is. Like, just because I say I support Trump doesn't mean I support every
these are the
single
most
thing he
Georgia,
does.
Alabama
As of right
girls
now,
I've
he's doing a great
seen.
job. He's definitely helping us a lot more than Biden did. I mean,
We've been at war so much. We have enough people here to take care of. I think we need to work on that.
I think we're gonna have to pay attention to the Georgia special election to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat. I think that's what we're gonna have to do. Oh. Well.
Welcome back. If it's Tuesday, voters are voting somewhere. And today, those somewheres are Mississippi and Georgia, where there's a very crowded special election to fill former Republican.
Oh my God. There's so many people. Look at this dude. I love that. Vote Underwood. That's my vote. This guy looks like Marco Rubio in a beard. Guy looks like a thumb. This guy looks like a thumb. This guy looks like a big toe. This looks airbrushed and one-dimensional. This guy looks like if Jeffrey Epstein had a disguise. This guy looks like if he was a Bush a W impersonator. This guy's a Karl Rove impersonator. I don't know anything about these people. I'm just this guy's hair makes him look extremely slanted and also like a Nazi.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat. Meanwhile, in Mississippi, incumbent Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith is facing a challenger in her primary. And on the Democratic side, it's a generational battle, as incumbent Congressman Benny Thompson, who recently turned 78, faces a primary challenge from 34-year-old Evan Turnage, a former Senate aide. Joining me now is NBC Chief Data Analyst Steve Kornacki.
Okay, wait. Who's his name? Evan Turnage? Evan Turn age. Give me some policies. I mean, he was a senior counsel to Elizabeth Warren, as chief counsel to Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He's responsible for the No Kings Act, reinforced the basic American principle that no one is above the law, especially the president. The bill pushed back against the dangerous 2024 Supreme Court ruling that unconstitutionally granted presidential immunity for crimes. In Congress, he'll work to protect democracy and make sure Mississippi families aren't governed by a system where the powerful play the rules different. Price gouging with Elizabeth Warren. Okay. Evan first went to Congress, but knowing the meaningful of the four active people would be for Mississippi. Early voting doesn't exist here. Polling places have closed. Turnout is often discouraged. To combat and protect our basic right to be heard, Evan worked on For the People Act, a sweeping democracy package that extends voter right. Oh, that's the thing that they were just talking about, I think, in the beginning of Philly DeFranco. Rights to formerly incarcerated and crackdowns on gerrymandering and dark money. The For the People Act was an integral pillar to the Vice President Harris 2024 election. Oh. Unfortunately, Bernie Thompson was the only Democrat to the House of Representatives to vote against the critical legislation. In Congress, Evan will help push back to make sure every Mississippian vote truly counts. I feel like the No Kings Act, I need to see what this did and if it passed. Underscoring a simple but profound fact: the American is a democracy and not a monarchy, and that no one, not even the president or vice president, is above the law. U.S. Senators Jack Reed and Sheldon Whithouse today joined Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and over 30 colleagues in introducing the No Kings Act. This legislation would make it clear that the presidents do not have immunity for criminal actions. The senators say that the law is needed to, in the wake of U.S. Supreme Court's partisan ruling, and conferred broadly immunity on the former President Donald Trump. Under the Supreme Court's extreme and misguided ruling, it would be nearly impossible to investigate the president for corruption while in office, allow future presidents to hijack federal law enforcement to serve their own personal needs, and take a dangerous step towards allowing the presidency to operate without constitutional checks and balances. Well, they already are. No one's doing anything. In her dissent, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson notes the extremely new immunity shield the court is offering the president. But wait, the No Kings Act would reaffirm that the president is not immune from legal accountability and the remove Supreme Court jurisdictions to hear appeals related to the presidential immunity criminal law. It is dangerous. I don't want. Okay, did it pass? The No Kings Act would A, reaffirm the presidents and vice presidents do not have immunity for actions that violate U.S. criminal law. No president or vice president, former or sitting, would be entitled to immunity from criminal prosecution for actions that violate criminal laws of the United States. The bill would clarify that Congress, not the Supreme Court, determines whom federal crimes laws may be applied. Remove the Supreme Court's appellate jurisdiction for all actions challenging the constitutionality of this legislation. The bill would allow presidents and vice presidents to challenge the constitutionality of the No Kings Act in the United States District Court of the District Court of Columbia. Any appeal would be handled by the United States Courts of Appeals for the District Court of Columbia Circuit. Using the exception clause of Article 3 of the Constitution, Congress would preclude the Supreme Court from hearing any appeals to these challenges. I almost said jurisdiction. It would further remove the Supreme Court's appellate jurisdiction to interfere with any criminal proceedings involving presidents or vice presidents on the basis of an alleged criminal act was an official action. Establish additional jurisdictions and protocol guardrails. The bill would allow the United States to bring criminal actions against the president or vice president if any applicable district court or United States District Court of the District of Columbia. It would also create a presumption of constitutionality for the No Kings Act unless a party establishes its unconstitutionality with clear and convincing evidence. Lastly, the bill would create statutes of limitations of 180 days for facial constitutional challenges and 90 days for as applied constitutional challenges. That's not fiscal. Okay, but did it pass? And did it get signed into law? Oh, it was introduced. That's so funny. It was introduced 2 years ago, and it hasn't fucking moved. Great job, Congress. Excellent. I was like, oh, this will be really helpful. Nice. You gotta love it. So, wait a minute. He wrote an act that didn't pass and hasn't moved anywhere in the Senate or anywhere at all, and he's using that to vote for. And he's also nothing he's written has gotten passed or has even moved anywhere. I'm sorry, but you shouldn't use those as advertising things if they're not actual ways that have helped people. Also, where are the policies actually outlining what he's going to do to help people other than just I will help you? Sorry, I just hate when people are like, "Oh, he's 34 years old, we should vote for younger people." And it's like, "Well, maybe we should do some research on our candidates." Sorry.
Senate aide. Joining me now is
I could be
NBC
totally
Chief
wrong.
Data Analyst Steve Kornacki, and Aaron Gilchrist is on the ground in Georgia. Thanks to you both. Steve, it is quite the field of candidates. So is it even possible to avoid a runoff here?
Yeah, it's possible, but certainly not likely. Look, this is a top two primary, they call it, right? You see the three sort of leading names right here, but we could keep scrolling down and go all the way down to 17 different names, 17 active candidates here. And the way this works is they're all on the ballot, Republicans, Democrats, there's libertarians, independents. Whoever finishes in the top two slots advances to a runoff in April, unless somebody gets 50% plus one, an outright majority wins tonight. Nobody is expecting that, but I think the dynamics to keep an eye on as the results come in. First thing to remember, of course, this is an overwhelmingly Republican district. Marjorie Taylor Greene had won by nearly 30 points in her final election. Donald Trump won this district by 37 points. Now, this Democrat right here, Sean Harris, he was the opponent that Greene faced in 2024. He got 36% of the vote. He's raised a ton of money nationally for this race, and it seems like he's probably largely consolidated the Democratic vote in this district. So while this is overwhelmingly a Republican district, if Harris can sort of monopolize the Democratic vote in the incredibly crowded race like that, he could get one of those two runoff spots. There's even a world tonight where maybe Harris could finish with the most votes of any candidate tonight. But again, something to keep in mind, part of that is because he may consolidate the Democratic vote, whereas the Republican vote is going to be split up. And I think the suspense and the drama when it comes to that Republican vote is around these two candidates right here, Clay Fuller and Colton Moore. Clay Fuller is the candidate endorsed by Donald Trump. I think that's what you need to know. He ran for this seat 6 years ago. He barely registered in the Republican primary, but he's got Trump's endorsement. And sometimes that's all it takes in one of these primaries. And then there's Colton Moore. He was a state senator. He certainly had some very provocative antics. He's been aligned with a lot of MAGA figures. I think he was certainly thinking he would get the Trump endorsement in this campaign, but he didn't get it. So can his sort of MAGA style work without the ultimate MAGA endorsement from Donald Trump? And I think those two Republicans here vying for maybe one of those spots, and then Harris, the Democrat. But again, whoever emerges, overwhelmingly Republican district still.
Big day for the big board. We love to see it. Thank you so much, Steve.
There's
for
not like
breaking
a
it down.
primary.
Aaron,
They're
I
just
wanna
all
turn to
going
you
head
since
to
you are
head.
in former Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor
Give 'em
Greene's
shivs.
district today. She hasn't weighed in, right, on the race to replace her, but the president did endorse Clay Fuller, as Steve just pointed out. You just spoke to him. What did he tell you?
You know, I think Steve laid the foundation here very nicely, Monica. Clay Fuller believes that this endorsement from President Trump is really going to be helpful, very helpful, in helping him to get to a place where he is closer to winning this election. Steve laid out why we think that a runoff is very likely here. Just the math seems to suggest that that's going to happen, given that there are so many people on the ballot in this district right now. But Clay Fuller told me that he does feel like he is the one with the win behind him.
I don't know. I
helping him
kind of
to
want
get to
Underwood.
a good place after tonight. I want you to hear part of our exchange a little earlier today.
We feel great, feel really confident. I feel like I'm the most dangerous candidate in the race with the president's endorsement. So we're just making sure that we're driving out the vote here today, trying to contact as many voters as we can.
Well, let me ask you, since you brought up the president's endorsement, how significant do you feel like that is? How much do you feel like that's been helpful for you?
It's been immensely helpful. Not only is it the honor of my lifetime, because I worked for President Trump in the first Trump administration as a Trump appointee, but I know going out and talking to voters across the district, one of the main things that they were concerned about when this race first started was where the president was going to be.
Now, I can tell you that the people here that we've spoken to already today have seemed to indicate that Clay Fuller is their choice because he's gotten this Trump endorsement. And also, if you sort of listen to him talk, people like him because he's not like Donald Trump. So there's definitely a clear desire to have Trump policies, but the temperament, maybe, Monica, is something that some voters in this area have indicated they're not necessarily wanting to see in the person that they choose.
I wonder
That's
when
why
we're
they
going to start
backed,
seeing
Fuller
results.
in this case. But of course, Colton Moore is a contender and somebody that folks are voting for. We've spoken to some people here who did vote for him, and we're going to get a chance to talk to him in just a couple of minutes here.
Aaron, tell me more about those voter conversations. What issues are they saying that are driving?
YouTube is not having a good time tonight. Is there any like live? Oh, the polls probably. Wait, polls probably just closed. Oh, forget. Oh, they just started. 7 p.m. Yup, just closed. What, Underwood? That was his name? Andrew Liberal. Oh, Libertarian, sorry. What are, like, what's like the, do we know like the expected? $20,000. Only like 55% of the votes counted. 87%. 48% of the votes counted. 98% of the votes counted. 41. 30%. 47%. It seems like the smaller districts are really kind of in favor for the Republican. I totally didn't know there was an election today. $7.10. Polk County, their first, like, 87% of the vote. What are these, like, early voting then? How do we know if somewhere's done voting? Because, like, look at the population. Like, this is 98% of the vote. That's like, say, 6,000 votes. Way more than that. Like, this one's done. This one's... Oh, well, it's saying it's calling it. Because it's super red right now. But again, this, like, this barely cracks, like, 3,000 people voted. This is, like, 5,000. I'm rounding up a lot. And this is only 30% of the vote. I did not know this was happening today. 52% of the vote. Woo! 7,000. 53% of that vote. 53% of the 52% that have been counted so far have been for the Dem. 7,000 votes. This one's barely cracking 2,000. And look, it doesn't even have the Democratic candidate. It's got the Colton Moore. Oh, I guess he's GOP. Oh. I didn't click on anything. What just happened? Oh my god, he made it to the runoff. Clayton made it to the runoff, so I guess maybe they'll see what happens next. Shit. Like, okay, I don't understand how Atlanta, Georgia elections work. Months after Martin, blah, blah, blah. Governor will serve out the remaining months of Marjorie's term, but if they want to remain in Congress beyond January, they'll have to run again in May. Last week, 10 Republicans and Harris qualified to run in November's election for a full term. Harris is a cattle farmer and retired general. Promised moderation and focus on district problem. I wish I knew how, like, Georgia elections were run. Because, like, if somebody has more votes countywide, would there be a runoff? Or do you have to get, like, a certain percentage? I want to do some math real quick. I know. Me, math. So, 7,405. 6,044. Plus 4,101. 2,888. 20,000 votes. The winning state. Plus 59. Plus 2,311. Plus 1,689. Plus, not even on. Plus 912 plus 1,462. 27,000. Okay, clear. 2,388 plus 3,396 plus 3,669. Nice. Plus, I do the 2,821 plus 1,705. 2,730. Wait, 2,773 plus 622 plus 2,854 plus 1,479 plus 924. What did I say the two were? So we've got 27,000 versus 22,000. Oh, it's right here. Duh. I didn't need to do the math. It was right in front of me. I'm sorry. Oh, they did. Did they call it here? I think the dark blue ones are the ones they've called. I mean, he's like a little bit less than 10 percentage points ahead. He filed a run for the vacant U.S. House seat, but the number fell to 17 active contenders after a handful of withdrawals from the race. All candidates will compete on the same ballot, regardless of political affiliation. No candidate receives the majority of votes. The top two vote getters will advance to an April 7th runoff. Okay, that makes sense. So basically, you have to get a majority of the vote. I think that's the majority. Especially the numbers that are in. All right, cool. So we'll keep an eye and come back on this race. This is a good A good race to keep an eye on. All right. We're doing this one and then I'm gonna get out of here for the night.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Well, the tenure of the worst Secretary of Homeland Security since the agency was formed has come to an end. In spectacular and
the agency of Department of Homeland Security has not been around that long. Please don't let them trick you. It's been like I'm older than the Department of Homeland Security. Okay. I think Blue is older than the Department of Homeland Security.
humiliating fashion. Kristi Noem, and we assume
Is
her
a
special
bird
government
hole.
friend Corey Lewandowski are out. Fired today on Truth Social by Donald Trump, quote, the current Secretary Kristi Noem, who has served us well and has had numerous and spectacular results, especially on the border, will be moving to be Special Envoy for the Shield of the Americas, a thing I didn't know existed until today. Our new security initiative in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, and Trump said he was going to announce it at Doral over the weekend, but I don't think he did. I haven't heard anything about it.
We are announcing on Saturday in Doral, Florida. I thank Kristi for her service at Homeland. He also announced her replacement. That would be current Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, a guy who has been all over cable news in the past week for some reason, although we all know who else watches a lot of cable news. He may be
Too
no
busy
better,
with golf,
but tonight is for reflecting.
It's so
on the
funny because like my favorite president of all time was actually way better at golf than this president.
America deserved 9/11,
Oh, that's
dude.
well, I mean, it involves that president, but it's the wrong
We
president.
must stop the terror. I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers.
Now watch this drive.
Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Love it.
The end of Kristi Noem's ignominious cabinet career. She made it 14 months, almost exactly as long as Cricket, the dear departed dog she bragged about shooting in her memoir. Kristi Noem's tenure is ending in complete humiliation. You could see from the look on her face this week as she was grilled by members of both parties, she very much looked like someone.
She wasn't just grilled. She was outed to her cuck of a husband. She was sleeping with another man on an airplane who was also married.
Who knew she was in danger of losing her job. And you could be forgiven for finding it all satisfying, considering just how corrupt and vile DHS has been under Noem's watch. From defending the violence and mass raids and kidnappings that have come to dominate headlines for a year, to posing in the Salvadoran Gulag, where she deported hundreds of men with zero process, using them as props as they rotted behind her while the gold Rolex on her wrist glinted in the light, to staging elaborate photo ops of herself armed and on fast boats and joining raids to create social media content, to slandering Renee Good and Alex Preddy, Americans who were shot and killed in broad daylight on camera by her masked agents. A slander that she didn't even have the decency to take back yesterday under questioning from House Judiciary member Jamie Raskin.
With his family there.
You stated the conclusion 2 hours after they were killed that they were domestic terrorists. I wanted to give you an opportunity to correct the record, not just for their family, but for everybody in America who believes in the truth and fairness and honesty.
In every situation, as facts come out, we relay.
You know, your acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, came before Congress. He said he had no knowledge whatsoever that Alex Preddy and Renee Good were domestic terrorists. None. This is your guy. He said that. He admitted that that was wrong. Why won't you admit it?
I'll tell you the investigation's still ongoing, and
So do you regret speaking before the investigation?
I would say that in those situations,
you regret that?
Chaotic scene on the ground, we relay information to the American people that they're asking for. And as things change, situations change.
People were asking you whether they were domestic terrorists? And you decided that they were before the investigation?
As we learn more, we.
You don't want to say anything to their families?
I did. I said condolences.
For what? How about an
sick
apology for what you said about their loved ones?
My heart is with them, and we will continue to stand with them as they get a complete investigation into these situations.
All right.
But it appears why all of those things contributed to her termination, and they really did, It wasn't any of those things specifically that actually was the thing that got Noam fired, the straw that broke the camel's proverbial back. It wasn't because she oversaw multiple Americans.
All right.
Multiple Americans.
I gotta go again. Everybody, you have a safe and wonderful night. I will most likely be back tomorrow. I'll keep you guys in the loop. But I am gonna go work on some book stuff. I think, did I see somebody's live right now? I'll probably raid into them. I want to go take a shower. My sunburn get all over me. Okay. I was at part of me's like, I'll go now, and the other part of me's like, no, zooted time for me. Yeah, that's where I am. Well, and I'm like, I'm getting conflicting messages, so I'm like, do I leave now? You know what? I'll just sit here and talk with you until I'm actually ready to go. We'll just yap. Like, what else are you doing? Right? Oh my god. So I was trying to plant my strawberries today, and Bobby got me this like pack from the store that's like a kind of like a started pack, right? And it was like, oh, there's like 7 plants in here, and I was like, okay, and I looked at it and it was all bunched together, and I was like, oh no. So like I planted it as is, and I was like, something doesn't feel right about this. So then I planted it in the front yard today, and I was trying to shake some of the dirt out of the roots to like really help them, and to see if I could get maybe the clump broken up a little bit. Turns out the entire clump was held together by a rubber band wrapped twice around. I cannot express to you guys enough, when you get your plants from places like Walmart or Target or where, I don't know, Best Buy, wherever you buy plants, right? Unless it's like a farmer's, like a trusted nursery, you are always going to have a kill switch, okay? Like kill switches in plants. I accidentally grew sunflowers because my bird seed I leave out. I just planted sunflowers and they're starting to stem. They cracked the seeds this morning. My cat loves watching them. I love that we all turn into bird lovers the older we get. Like, yeah, watching the birds is fun. I have a dad friend who's like my age, and he actively loves bird watching, and I love that he loves it. Like a lot. But yeah, so like most plants, especially the potted plants from Walmart, or like if you get like one of their bushes, there's usually like some stuff crammed in there if you don't take the roots out and like really clean it before you, like if people just take it from the pot and put it in, most of the time it ends up dead because they put a mesh around soil and the roots get stuck in there, and then they also do that for like different layers. It's really awful and I hate it. Like, I'm just trying to let these plants grow, and corporate greed keeps killing them, so I have to come back and keep buying plants. But that's why we have the seed swap. Weekend duties, watching the birds with my cat. That sounds pretty chill. That sounds so relaxing. I've been doing this. I got birthday parties this week. Kids' birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese. I'm excited for my kids to go. I'm glad they're gonna have a good time. I am like, gotta put up a people battery and a noise battery and a mom in public battery. That's a lot of batteries in one day. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll make some friends. What else is going on? Still haven't heard back from Hold on, wait, I'm gonna check my email. I haven't heard back from No Kings yet, and it's driving me insane. Like, Haven't heard anything at all from anyone. I'm trying to get back into writing my book. It's not like I've stopped, but I'm just like, I'm gonna edit now because I've run out of steam. And like, I've added a new chunk into my book because it just, when you write sometimes, or when I write, I find that like, I'll start with an idea in my mind of what I want, but then as I build the story, things have to change because like, you know, maybe a character you're writing doesn't actually sound the way you thought they would. You know, maybe they're not as sarcastic, not as harsh as you originally created them to be. And you need to go back and like fix that. And so I need to go back and fix that, but I also added a bit. It's like there were a lot of plot holes in the plot I came up with, and I needed to figure out ways to tie them up that sounded good and would also leave like breadcrumbs for everybody. And I was like, okay, I need to fit in like a whole ass new character. I need a subplot. Because originally it was supposed to be like, all right, Kenny, stop me if you've heard this. But my book is currently set in Faerun, but it will not be set in Faerun when I publish it. I'm just using it as like, I needed a place to plot points. I couldn't draw a map myself. I needed to like borrow a map just to like, I needed to know how long it took to sail a boat from Starmantle to Raven's Bluff. Okay? Like, you do not understand my Google search, okay? My Google search history is like, are dragonborn hands called hands or claws? Okay, hold on. Anyway, I'm gonna explain this and then I'm gonna get going. So, this is actually one of the songs that I used for writing. Anyway, this girl gets sucked into Faerun because a wizard messed up a summoning spell when he was trying to talk to another being, like a spirit. He was trying to summon a spirit to talk to, and he accidentally summoned her. Didn't go away when the spell wore off, so now she's stuck there. It's an isekai. That's right. I've tricked all of you. I've written an isekai. So, they have to go on... Cheers. Hello, Real. How are you? So they have to go on an adventure to like a city. And then I was like, I'm sending too many people on too many singular quests without any character building going on. So I was like struggling with that. So what did I end up doing was I was like, okay, I'm going to split them up. You guys are going on a fetch quest. You're going to stay here and have a training montage. You're going to learn how to use a short sword. You're going to go spend time away and build up other character personality. So that's where I'm headed, but I'm struggling to create that like bridge there. So like I'm just going back and editing everything, and I'm not like deleting anything. I'm just gonna go through and read and like compare what I wrote to my current notes and adjust accordingly. But anyway, I am actually now going to get out of here. Thank you for coming in, Real. I appreciate it. I hope you stick around for the raid. I gotta close my window. It's starting to get cold. It's 63 out. It was 82 today. Missed the sesh, damn. Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't very long of a sesh. It's been kind of interrupted by family stuff. But I will be back tomorrow. Same time, same crime. But I'm raiding Daisy, so dude up. You're not Autobots. I don't know what to call you guys. I was trying to come up with a name. Wasn't it like my cane toads? My little tadpoles? I don't know. I don't know what to call you guys. We'll have to figure it out together. Just like a real dash to sit. Anyway, bye everybody.